By then, I'd taken up almost like a manager position, a role in the crew.
Right.
Everyone else was a lot younger, so although I was the shortest, everyone looked up to me, right?
Oh, no wonder you spoke about Kevin Hart, direct comparison.
Just it's actually not a direct comparison. But you know, I'm taller than Kevin Hart.
Okay.
So
okay.
Kevin Hart, if you're listening, you best know that I'm taller than you, and that I'm above average height.
His name is Claybourne Appies. He is the founder of DeafTouch, which you will hear about as the conversation unfolds.
So an accelerator is you are already beyond idea stage, you're already in prototype stage, and we're trying to accelerate you to market and get you investors and expose you to markets and so forth. The challenging part about it is the slow response.
Wow. Even
you would think when you launch the first deaf-to-deaf call center that companies would be on your doorstep.
Exactly.
Because you're solving a massive problem.
Yes.
But because it's such a deep systemic issue, people actually try to get it out of their peripheral, because what you are doing is you are exposing something that's festering in society. And with the culture that exists in today's day and age, people don't want to face the uncomfortable thing.
So let me start off by saying his name is Claybourne Appies. He is the founder of DeafTouch, which you will hear about as the conversation unfolds and what it does. Great work, beautiful work that he's doing there. Amazing work, right? But there was also a time in his life where he owned a matrix warehouse and where he worked as an insurance call center agent for one plan. And he's got so much wisdom, so much experiences that he can share and unpack with us today. So I hope you are ready. Stay locked in with us, and we will definitely ignite your light and keep it burning bright with us here on EXC-i8. All right, Claybourne. Hey, does that little rap take you back to your hip-hop days?
I tell you, I was almost inspired to start cracking bars. They call it bars now. Back then, it was just to make sure that things rhyme.
Yeah.
So at the end of rhyme, the next line would have time.
Oh, look at that. Just careful now, you're going to replace me.
Look, you've done such a stellar job thus far. I definitely can't replace you. But I'll make sure that I contribute.
There we go.
In the most honest and truthful way.
Yes.
To make sure that this conversation is one that can be appreciated by our audience. So
yeah.
Really, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure, it's a privilege, and it's also an honor.
Yes.
I think when visions start to unfold, it's in those beginning stages that which needs to be forged gets forged. And to be here at this stage is really an extraordinary honor for me. So thank you so much. I hope I can contribute fruitfully and make sure that this conversation is one that resonates deeply.
Look, you have so much already off air. I wish the entire journey from the time I got to your house could have been documented and recorded. So I'm going to do my best to try and steer that conversation along those lines, because there is so much in that, right? And I really just want to unpack it from its purest point, okay? And I think what people would also enjoy, what I really enjoyed as well, was just the nostalgia that came in with certain things that we spoke about, memories. Like as South Africans, sometimes we take for granted how good things were and probably still are, in retrospect. And why I say that is I'm going to share a picture with Gio for him to put up on screen right now. Okay, you're laughing because you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. And in this picture, you'll see the little kid holding the PSP that is Claybourne. And to me at this time, I thought this was the coolest crew ever. They just had this confidence and the swagger, and they owned the streets. So if you were in Dalpark, you knew about them. You knew the Shaolin Monks, as they were called and known by. What is happening in this picture, Claybourne? Who is this crew? What are you guys doing here?
Wow. Terence, you're taking me back many, many, many years. Shaolin Monks was formed as a means for us to express ourselves at that time as teenagers who saw life just a little bit differently to everyone else around us. So just a bit of background about Dalpark, just to give context to the story. We moved to Dalpark in 1989, my father being a very pioneering man with a great vision. And he comes from Beaufort West. This is during, apartheid in its extreme days. And he just has this vision for his family. And he moves us out of Park to Dalpark. And we're the first non-whites in a white suburb.
Yeah.
And already at an early age, one started to develop perceptions and views of life. And one of those opinions that started to resonate at the time was conformity. Conform. If you don't conform, then not only aren't you part of what's normal, but you will see yourself as an outcast. And I didn't know at the time that when we formed this crew that this is actually what it was gonna, evolve into.
Right.
Because originally it just started as friends having fun, listening to hip hop, and obviously, as you know, back then hip hop was making a lot of grounds within different communities, right? And already by this time, there'd been a lot of different colored people and black families that started to move into Dalpark, and it was quite more saturated now in terms of demographic and color and so forth. And school holidays used to be much fun, like a whole lot more fun way back in the day. And it started becoming a bit boring and so forth. And, hip hop was just that thing. Hip hop had a hint of rebellion to it. It had a bit of, we're not going to conform to it. It screamed that vibe, and it was just amazing. And we started to form this crew. Strangely enough, it was a bunch of misfits that all got together where, there's the middle child. So, in fact, looking back, we all had middle child syndrome. Because every single one of us is a middle child.
Right.
And this crew just became that point of both escape but also rebellion. And I remember vividly my seller was one of the guys in the picture. His little brother is right in the front, Bashimani.
Bashi, we can actually pull up a picture of Bashi because he took Shaolin Monks a little bit further on his own later on, eh?
100%, he did. And he's doing really well today in terms of the B-boy space. But Bashimani was this chubby kid. And for a moment in Bashi's life, he was pro his father's opinion.
Right.
That we busy with drugs. Because how do you dance for 11 hours, 12 hours in a day and not get tired? So his father was convinced that we were in drugs. But it really was just an escape from the norm. It was just an escape from the conformity, and it was us forming a movement to say that we're going to break down boundaries. We're going to do something new, and we're going to inspire others at the same time. Little did we know that it's exactly what was taking place, because obviously later on, Bashimani, we converted him.
Yes.
After his siding with his father about, this is not normal and so forth. Today, like you say,
he has not let go.
He has not let go. That really defined a lot in my early days. And it brings back really fond memories, because it really created friendships that have lasted a lifetime. All of us are still friends in that picture, and more came.
Yeah.
And more than 25 years later, we are still good friends and in different areas, still pushing the boundaries and kicking against the norms.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize until this moment how definitive that crew really was going to be in my life.
Yeah. And yet it was, hey? And the impact that it had, not just for you and everybody on the crew, but everybody was younger looking up, right? As you say, at that point in South Africa, obviously we were surrounded with, Kwaito music, house music. So hip hop was sort of foreign and new. Yes, we listened to the likes of Tupac and Biggie Smalls and things like that. But for a local concept, it was still foreign, right? If you were in a dance crew, you're gonna be doing Pantula. So the break dancing and things like that, it was foreign, and there you guys are a part of probably other crews in other neighborhoods like you, pioneering that, inspiring other kids. So there I was, from the outside, looking at you guys and just thinking, man, that looks so cool. And at times where you feel like an outcast in your own situation, you want to get into that kind of community. And, that is part of the reason that inspired me into going into hip hop later on and trying to find my way in a music career in that realm, in that world. And I imagine in the same way, it's that kind of impact that crews did in their local communities that inspired the coming up of the people we are seeing on TV now and listening to now, because that sort of ignited the culture, so much so that it became a fresh concept on the Wild Room that you guys featured on as well on YoTV, thanks to DJ Switch. And please talk to us what happened. Tell us what happened that moment when you guys came. You were invited to Wild Room, and then go on. I feel like it's not my place to share what unfolded and how you dominated, but
Wow. Look, I'll be honest in saying I don't think it was as much domination as it was just showing up in the moment.
right.
But I love that you bring it up because, interestingly, that was a very definitive moment for us as a crew. Largely because guys like DJ Switch and his crew were doing really groundbreaking stuff. I mean, they're on YoTV. They introduced this segment of the show. And in fact, later on, it actually became the entire theme.
Right.
Which was really wonderful. And I think we were inspired by that because we came onto the scene at a time where, you've got these labels that the stereotypes and the stigmas that's attached to certain things. And obviously hip hop was very synonymous with gangsterism and all the wrong things. And we are now pushing this so-called agenda of ours. And when we saw this platform that Switch and his crew created, man, oh man, were we excited. And interestingly enough, it became one of our goals to be on the show because we said to ourselves, if only we can get onto that show, then things are going to kick off from there. Then people will take us seriously and our name will just become this big name. And unbeknown to us, when we did actually get onto the show, it was such an extraordinary and wonderful moment. The energy was amazing. Keep in mind, we'd obviously been building up to this moment in the days prior, where practice became almost, 13, 14 hours in the day. So you'd be up at like 6 and you'd leave the house and we'd head off to my seller's house and we'd get our tapete. And, people used to laugh at us. We're walking with this tapete in the street. The old school floors.
Yes.
That's shiny and so forth.
Yes.
So
to roll it out.
In English, it's called a vinyl.
Yeah,
a vinyl floor.
Yeah.
So we actually walked something like 8 or 9 kilometers the one Friday to go buy it because we needed this floor because you need to have a nice floor that's smooth and, so you can spin on your head because that's how the older people used to label us, those people that spin on their heads. So with all that type of, criticism and backlash that you're getting, that YoTV moment was just that y'all didn't believe in us. and we're gonna show you guys. And so we went on to that show that day, and we did the whole battle thing. And it in that moment it was just so extraordinary because you step into a space where you forget there's cameras around you, and all that you want to do is live out this passion. And we get to do that. And so part of the battle, at the end of the battle, they used to have callers that phone in, and they then need to now judge and say who they believe the winners were. And the interesting thing, Terence, was it was a white lady who phoned in. And she said she's going to have to go with the new guys, the Shaolin Monks. And oh my goodness, not only did we erupt in studio, but obviously they felt a little embarrassed as well that this is our turf, this is our territory. How dare you come in here and beat us? And that just set the tone for what was to follow, where we became a lot more competitive, but the scene itself started to become a lot more competitive. And as time went by, two of our guys who really started to flourish and push forward in their dance and in their moves, Bronwyn and Marcella, went to compete in the 2-on-2 battles. And at the time, it was such a big thing. And again, they won YoTV, and the guys just started to become so famous. I remember I was dating Shaolin at the time, who's now my wife. We walked into Festival Mall once. And this is now as a result of all these things that started to happen for the crew. And I had Edgar's account. Children, if you're listening, do not open Edgar's account. It's the devil. Anyway, so I wanted to grab something to eat, and so what I did was I said to her, look, take my card and you go and you'll pay the account, and then I'll go get us something to eat so long. So by the time that you come out, food's ready and we can chill. And as she's walking, there's this group of girls that just swarm around her. And they are like, is that not the guy from Shaolin Monks? Is that not the guy from Shaolin Monks? And she's so taken by this moment, so she says yes.
Yeah.
And my goodness, that I have the first view of what having groupies look like. I tell you. So that YoTV moment really it put us on the map. It made us quite famous.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest thing for me in that moment, looking back, was that it gave us a voice. It gave us the credibility. It validated us so much that we started to push the norms even greater since then. So
No, that's amazing, man. And then so that then opens more doors for you. You guys go to the Yamaha Young Talent competition, get to the finals, and you meet some interesting people. Tell me what that was like and some of the people that you guys met along the way.
Wow. Terence, so we remember entering the Yamaha Young Talent Search, and it was a whole lot of preliminary rounds that you had to go through. So it was quite a very testing platform, because it brought the best of the best from around the country together. Singers, dancers, different type of artists and creatives that came, and they had a platform in which they could express their talent and obviously make a name for themselves. And man, it was extraordinary. It was an extraordinary journey. But a few things that stood out for me about that journey was in the final preliminary round, we had Carnival City.
Yeah.
And we in their big theater. And that was just that moment, picture Kevin Hart walking out on one of his tours, and all that you see is this lights and these people. And that's what that moment felt like to us.
Yeah.
Because finally we've stepped onto the big stage.
The big stage.
And not only have we validated ourselves to this point, but we had become one of the most recognized crews at the time in Gauteng.
Yeah.
And we win the preliminary round. Man, were we excited, and we were so happy, and it was just joy all around. And we decided that, look, let's enjoy the moment a little bit. So Carnival City Mall was new and the KFC was there, and we said we're gonna go spoil ourselves at KFC, and we went. And as we're chilling there, having fun, obviously it's just these vibes, this crew that just won the preliminary round, we're going to the finals, and energies were flowing and so forth. Obviously within Dalpark, people that now know us and so forth walk in and out, and we high-fiving, and you know, it's just us.
It's your moment.
It's our moment.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, this was an interesting moment.
Right.
Next best thing, we see Deleuze, aka Bongani Fasi, another one of their crew members. I can't remember his name.
Was Crazy Lou with them?
Crazy Lou. And we at the KFC. And we were balling. And I remember we ended up giving them $20.
It sounds like nothing now, but $20 was something back then.
listen, a Streetwise 2 back then I think was $12.99.
Yeah.
So we had just sponsored them
for someone.
a Streetwise 2, and we gave them some change.
Yeah.
Who are these guys? And I tell you, it was looking back such a definitive moment for us, because I think if we were to consider at that moment and in that time everything that it was for what it was, we'd made it, man. We'd made it, because here's these guys. At the time they weren't what they became now, and I'm super proud of actually what they got to accomplish, each of them in their respective spaces. The Les, Bongani, although we never actually ran into each other ever since then again. It was an extraordinary moment.
Yeah.
And to some degree, if I consider it for what it was almost like a moment where, if you reflect, you can say, but I actually was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And things were just so aligned at that point in time. So much so that we then get a call not very long after that. I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name, but he won the Coca-Cola Pop Stars, colored guy. And I think he'd also married or dated one of the other participants.
I don't know if they won, because there was a group of guys. There were 5 in the crew, I think, and then the girls who were competing, one of them that he dated won. Was it Chamali that won, and then they were runners?
They were runners. Yes.
Something along
so I
those
can't
lines.
remember their names 100%, but they were affiliated to a dance studio in Sandton at the time, and through them they contacted us to actually come and perform at a Ocean Basket year-end function. So Ocean Basket decided to do something a little bit radical for the year-end function, and also include these colored b-boy hip-hop dancers as part of the entertainment. And next thing we knew, we jetted off to Carousel.
Yes. Living at large.
Put on an extraordinary performance, and like you said, living it large, and it was just an extraordinary experience. And I think if there's anything that would have validated that in that moment, was the fact that we were paid something like 30,000 Rand. And I think we performed for, it wasn't more than 30 minutes. That we put up this extraordinary performance and people clapping and all that. And I remember thinking to myself, no one's going to tell me now. You know, because by then I'd taken up almost like a manager position, a role in the crew.
Right.
Everyone else was a lot younger. So although I was the shortest, everyone looked up to me, right?
Oh, no wonder you spoke about Kevin Hart in a direct comparison.
Just no. It's not that's actually not a direct comparison. Did you know I'm taller than Kevin Hart?
Okay.
So Kevin Hart, if you're listening,
you
best know that I'm taller than you, and that I'm above average height. I just wanna
Clear the air.
clear the air on
Yeah.
that one. So looking back at that moment, it's really one that extraordinarily played such a definitive role in what came next. Because, like I said, I took up the manager role. So I used to drive everyone everywhere. So, and I was working and hustling at the same time. So I couldn't, by the time we got to that stage, really practice as much as Bronwyn and Marcella and Bashi and Ellie and so forth. So I just made sure that we get where we need to get to. And after work, I would join the practices. Plus, I started dating. And I couldn't focus on the dancing so much. So I just wanted to make sure everyone gets to where they need to get to and so forth. But spending 30,000 was good.
And just, to put it into perspective again for the audience, maybe for some of the younger ones, 30 grand in the early 2000s, what year would that have been? Like 2004, 5?
2002, 2003.
Even earlier. That is today something like feeling like, having maybe 100 grand, or if not a little bit more, in terms of value and what you would get paid now. I don't know if there are many crews today that are getting that, for showing up at a gig. So that just, it speaks volumes of what you guys were doing and achieving during those phases. And this is in a world before social media. So you're achieving that kind of level of influence. Can you imagine being the Shaolin Monks of then with the resources, just, having that accessibility of social media? I can't, where would you guys have been?
Well, I always, in my younger years, told my wife, we're dating, if ever I win the lotto, I'll probably end up on drugs. And I didn't realize how true that actually would have been, because if We Buy Cars existed back then, 30K would have been able to buy us a crew bus.
Right, right.
But I can't remember what we did with that money. Listen, I can't remember what we did with that money, but the feeling at that time was just so extraordinary that I don't think the money mattered, because we were doing what we loved.
Yeah.
It's what we woke up for. It's what we practiced for. It's everything that at that point in time you wanted it to be.
Yes.
Yes. So spending the money, I realized it was never about the money.
Yeah.
It really was never about the money. I think it was a group of young men looking for validation, looking for a place to belong. And you touched on earlier something about community. That's actually where community gets forged.
Right.
It's, man, like I said, friendships have lasted forever as a result of building that strong sense of community. And it again just shows the power of belonging.
Yes.
It really does. Because as we know, the power of money and its ability to cause division and strife and challenges, interestingly enough, making that amount of money at that time never did anything.
Right.
We just had a great time. We enjoyed it. We spent it. We bought this tapete, and we have the most expensive tapete in all of the dancing crews. And I remember, interestingly, when Switch and his partner Vokes
Yes. Yes.
were doing the tours for all the crews that made it to the finals of the 2-on-2 battles.
Yeah.
Came and interviewed us at Bronwyn's mom's house, which is where our tapete was, which is our little studio. They were so impressed because this was a tapete that, they're not used to dancing on and so forth. And I remember again, we got all these street cred. But that's one of the things that we did do with the prize money, besides like squandering.
You did reinvest it somehow, somewhere.
So yeah. that was really fun and fond moments
Yes.
that really plays such an extraordinary role today
Yeah. Yeah.
in who we are.
And it's such a stark contrast, from where you started out, from those days as being a crew, a hip hop crew, b-boying and all of that, to what you are currently doing now, and through DeafTouch, which I really want us to get to. But there's so much that's happened, in that space, from where you're transitioning from a b-boy into the world of business, and to where we are now with DeafTouch. You mentioned about community, or we spoke about community being formed through that crew, and you mentioned that it was something that was for the outcasts, right, where they could come together and fit in, and everybody in the crew was sort of an outcast in their own way. Okay. And was that also then the case for you? Clearly it was. And what was happening, what was going on at home that made you feel like maybe you were an outcast over there? What was it that you were seeking validation for? Why were you running and seeking it, in a outside community?
Yo, Terence, I'm going to have to be careful in answering this one. But, so we moved to Dalpark, 1989, early 90s, and my brother and I were best friends. We were best friends. We did everything together. We were sort of forced to do so because back then it was before Mandela had come out and so forth. So him and I spent an extraordinary amount of time together, playing soccer, playing cricket, playing tennis, and the things we used to do, we brought from our earlier childhood in Dalpark Park, where, community was forged as young children through games and through playing and interacting, where parents were out, obviously needing to make a living and keep roofs over your head and so forth, and you guys were sort of left having to be each other's friends and be in your community with your friends and so forth. So that's really how it started. And then as we started to grow, obviously, each one starts to develop his own interests. And then there's this void that gets left that I only realize right now. It was that where, he sort of started to go his own route, seeking his own friends and so forth. And I ended up having to do sort of the same.
Yeah.
But with that, there's this need to belong to something that exists, because you've got all this built up energy that you have to express somewhere in somehow, and you have to get out, because if you don't, then we were taught that you'd probably start fanging on nonsense. Katakwat is what they used to call it. And even I regularly got into those kind of situations where you're bored now in this moment, you're tired of playing tennis, you're done with the cricket, you've already broken the window so many times, you're tired of the soccer, and then you start doing things, and you start becoming a bit mischievous. That's what it was labeled at the time. But it was really just you exploring your world.
Yeah.
And so when I think I realized that out there, people appreciate your presence for what they themselves are seeking, that forms some sort of association. And once that association and connection is made, then you can start exploring it.
Yeah.
So for me, the validation was really just more a case of having a voice that has the ability to influence. And if I use it, then I can change my world,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And that's what I did. I was fortunate enough, obviously, to have people around me that were sort of looking for the same thing. Because all of us, it comes to school holidays and you're looking for something to do, and, you're not going on holiday, you're not going away. You're in your neighborhood, what you gonna do? And so, you're sort of tired of TV. You're tired of like going to Lee and Lester's house to go play on the computer. Lee had a 386 at the time, and that was the fastest PC in the whole of the friends. And it was a 386, and we could play games on it and stuff. So you sort of got tired of that.
Sure.
After burning the field in Dalpark because you wanted to make a potjie in the in the veld, you were like, hey, you're yearning for something different. You're yearning for something new. And then, these guys that were spinning on their heads came along, and I was interested, and I could pour myself into that as something a little bit more constructive.
Yes.
And one of the positives was that you build a nice body because you're exercising and stuff, and you're getting compliments for your chest lines from the girls. So it sort of gave you all these bits and pieces of sort of validation that you're seeking, approval that you're seeking, and it came in different ways. And I must be honest, it was quite addictive because outside of feeling like you belong, you realize that, okay, you can also do this. You can get interest from the girls. You can you can do this. You can be a bit famous and so forth. And I think it's really just everyone's need to belong and be part of something that would give them meaning.
Yes.
So being able to define that now is quite nice because it played such an important role.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting, a couple of key words and phrases that stood out, in what you've been saying. It shows that it's always been, in you. Like you've always had the heart for community and forging community and giving meaning to that community that you've created or to an existing one, hence like with DeafTouch. You see, you mentioned, becoming a voice or using a voice, and now you are a voice for that deaf community that you have poured yourself into. So it speaks to your nature that there's always, and it's very interesting hearing early on that you were already sort of in that process, and all of that has shaped you for and geared you for what you are doing now, and you can do it with the right attention and passion. And of course, there's so much purpose and meaning to it. So I just only want to know, and I think the audience would be curious as well, why DeafTouch? Why the deaf community? What inspired that?
Terence, so 1989, first non-whites in a white area. My dad did such an amazing job, him and my mom, of sort of shielding us from what was happening outside the house with these white people that were not happy with our presence there. You coloureds, you come from Rege Park. Rege Park, as you know now, is quite notorious for the wrong things. Those things define you according to society. And once you're defined and you're labelled, then there has to be follow through. So we didn't belong. My parents really, today looking back, we didn't really feel it as children, but we saw it. And we saw the attempt at degrading us and making us feel less than the next. Although, by all means, if we judge from the outside, surely we've made it, right? Because we're in Dalpark, it's a suburb. It's at the pool brace. We were just that family.
Yeah.
And to our family and our close circles, we've made it. But to a different group of people, we didn't belong. And they made our lives really hell. I look back and see how my parents had to make sure that weekends we're not home.
Oh, wow.
Not home at all. And we forged the church life, church community. Looking back now, it was a lot to cope with what was going on, because my parents had been receiving so much threats and all the rest from the outside. Little did I know that would play a massive role later in my life. So fast forward to 2004, I'm working at an office park that's right next to Caesar's Palace. It's now Emperor's Palace, but it was Caesar's Palace. I hope I'm not giving away my age. But at this office park, one of the businesses that were there hired deaf people. And I was privy to witness a deaf colleague and a hearing colleague communicating to each other via a Nokia 3310. Now, Nokia 3310 at the time, I must tell you, was top-notch technology.
Yes.
And I mean, like you saw in one of my pics, I had a PSP.
Yeah.
So technology, strangely enough, started to have this underpinning presence in my life.
Right.
Because as part of my boredom and issues that I used to have, and I want to express myself, I used to dismantle the electronics in the house and so forth, and started fixing PCs and so forth for my father and his friends. When he realized I have a talent, and he could brag with me to his friends that my son can fix PCs and stuff like that. So technology always played an interesting role. But in this specific moment, I witnessed this interaction between the deaf and the hearing colleague for about a year. And it always intrigued me. Like every time that I saw it, it felt like it was the first time I'm seeing it. And I remember after about 10, 11 months of witnessing this every single day, fascinated in exactly the same way every single day.
Yeah.
I hear this voice, Terence, that says to me, one day you're going to make a difference in this community's lives. I distinctly remember myself saying, okay. So I responded to the voice, but what it was going to look like, I didn't know. Fast forward a few years, I'm working in an insurance company, and I get this call from a mom, deeply frustrated, heavily frustrated. You guys are now the sixth insurer that I'm phoning. No one wants to help me in the way that I need help. Why you guys like this? And she's just going off, letting it off. But we were trained really well on how to deal with these things. But more importantly, you weren't allowed to drop the call. You must deal with the matter. And it required you to dive deeply into empathy, deeply into sympathy. And what I did was I did something we're not supposed to do, which is called pre-qualifying.
Okay.
Pre-qualifying is you try to find out information that could make sure that you don't quote this client if it's a difficult situation and you know you're not going to close the deal, so you're not allowed to do that. But then I sort of pre-qualify and I ask her, ma'am, what's the problem? I ask a few questions and eventually she says, my daughter is deaf and none of these insurance companies wants to help me. I said, like, what's the problem? So she says she wants to put her daughter as the main insured person.
Okay.
So that she can build her own insurance portfolio so that later in life it can benefit her. Everyone was willing to put the daughter as a regular driver, but not as an insured person because of the risk that needs to be mitigated that they can't do properly because they can't communicate properly with the daughter.
Wow.
Long story short, having developed all these different attributes of sympathy and empathy, I moved to compassion. And I've come to find that compassion is the difference between empathy and sympathy. But how you get there is to take action. And I took action in that moment. The action I took was, went to my managers, spoke to my managers, couldn't find a solution, spoke to the head of the department, couldn't fully find a solution. Long story short, they spoke to the legal department and the compliance department and so forth. And eventually they came back to say, look, we'll assist the mom, but what we're going to do is the mom and the daughter has to sign a power of attorney in order for the mom to act on behalf of the daughter. So it was a victory,
Yeah.
but not in the way that I felt within me is the right, outcome.
Yeah, yeah.
And that moment stuck with me because it took me back to the voice I heard. And having taken this action, moving from empathy to compassion through action, I found a solution. But the problem existed in that this is the daughter's 18th birthday. They want to surprise the daughter on the weekend with the car. You can't take the car off the dealer floor if there's no insurance. Now this mom used to go back to the daughter, spoil the surprise. But the worst thing is we could only conclude that insurance the next week, Thursday. We couldn't do it on that same day. So what effectively would have been 20 minutes became a 5-day exercise just for this daughter who is deaf to get the same thing as you and I. So I just wanted to correct you on one thing. I'm not the voice to the deaf. And I had to learn that through the ethos of nothing about us without us. So whilst I had this extraordinary compassion as a result of everything throughout my journey that built me up to that specific moment, obviously I didn't know and understand that if I want to solve this, it would require me to work with the deaf community and not act on their behalf or want to be a voice for them, which I would discover later in my journey. But at that specific moment, all that I wanted to do was solve the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I realized, Terence, is that I don't think we solve problems for the world. I think we solve problems for ourselves so that we make our world a better place for ourselves and other people benefit from that.
Okay.
If you do a good enough job, then those who serve as beneficiaries or stand as beneficiaries, they get to leverage off that and then create a better world for themselves through what you've done. So I always thought that I was going to change the world, and that was something that was always in the back of my head as a teenager. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change the world because these injustices aren't right. It's not fair that certain people must be treated a certain way. There's things that we don't control. I mean, I didn't choose to be colored.
Right.
I didn't choose to be a male.
Right.
This is what I have, and I don't see any reason as to why I need to be treated differently. So in moving to Dalpark, which was the first non-whites, we were put into schools, and at Woody Primary, I was the first non-white in Woody Primary. That was, I think, 93. And that was for a full year that I was the only colored individual in a white school. And so you had to perform, and you had to show and prove yourself, and you had to validate yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember as a result, you got this validation and all those things. And the year later, other colored children started to come to the school, and we then became the first group of non-whites that went to Boksburg High. And that was 90. It was in the late 90s. But so when I moved over to high school, there's obviously been quite a few other colored people from different schools and stuff like that. And we then became the first group of non-whites that went to Boksburg High. So all these things were really defining what was taking place so that I could put all of it together when the moment came. And I had to respond to this voice. And in doing so, there was a process that now could be implemented at other insurance companies where I went, which was the power of attorney, do that and so forth. But still, it was long and it was tedious. And I remember in 2016, thinking back to the technology part in my life, I said, technology can solve this. Technology can solve this. Keep in mind, when I had to choose a career and I told my father acting, he chucked the Oxford Dictionary at me. Man, listen, I was the tallest in my father's house. So the short man chucked this Oxford Dictionary at me in lightning speed. I had a weird fascination with reading words and understanding it and so forth. So that's why I had an Oxford Dictionary by my bedside. And when I told him acting, he was not happy because he was an accountant and so forth. And that's not going to happen. And he tormented me for a whole week. And eventually, at the end of the week, I said, I'm going to go into IT.
Yeah.
And found myself in my first year of university. I wasn't happy with it because I was like, my choice was acting.
Yeah, you're still fighting.
And then the rebel in me arose and I said, I'm screwed this. I'm going to go work. And I went to work for APSA. And I was in the call center environment, and the call center started to follow me until that moment. So I said to myself, no, man, technology has to solve this problem, because all that this is a communication problem. That's all it is. If we can solve the communication problem, then that deaf daughter could have spoken to herself. And on top of that, the risk would have been better mitigated.
Right.
Because now you can ask the person you're insuring the question yourself, explain it to her yourself, and the risk is not that great. On top of that, you now don't have to depend on a third party to translate this message to the deaf individual, considering that they themselves aren't insurance professionals.
Yeah.
So I answered that voice, and I went in search of something that would effectively solve that problem in a manner that would return agency to the deaf individual, so that they can speak for themselves. And hence I say it's not about me being a voice to them. That's what I came to learn, and graciously so. And now we are able to live in a world where there is a deaf-to-deaf call center that solves that problem.
Okay, Claybourne, so that's all very fascinating. And it's I always find it interesting, when certain things happen at certain points, and then something will happen almost in like a distanced interval from where you first had that encounter, right? And I don't know, people will describe it in many different ways, but given what I believe and what you believe, one can only think of it as God, planting a seed in your heart, because you found it so interesting about the two people that you saw communicating to each other via the Nokia 3310, right? And now later on, you find yourself, it just so happened to be you that dealt with that issue. Amazing. Like that, come on, that cannot be coincidence. In a world with so many possibilities and outcomes, why did it have to be you? Is that something you often think about, or have you sort of accepted it for what it is?
Wow, so much to unpack in that question. Let me sum it up as this. Each and every single one of us is word, because we're created in the image of God. And you as word, in the same way that Christ is word, you have a specific purpose and a specific function. And so coincidence would mean that there effectively is a God that doesn't know what he's doing. And I can take so much rest in exactly what you're saying, because nothing in my life has been coincidence. All of it has been so intricately woven into this extraordinary tapestry that is unfolding through the process called life. And every single thing that I've been through had a specific purpose. I mean, resilience was built in very early stages of my life. Would I have personally known that one day this is what it was going to be? I can absolutely tell you, no. I had dreams of becoming a pro golfer. I had dreams of becoming an actor.
Yeah.
There's a moment in my life where I wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
That one I can attest to. You always had the jokes. You're just that guy with all the wit and all the things to say.
So honestly, the last thing that I would have expected is me having to serve a community that has been so overlooked. But I could relate to it. I can relate to it. And because of the fact that I can relate to it, I am willing to do something about it. And like I said earlier, I realized that I make the world a better place for myself.
Yeah.
Because this specific thing doesn't sit well with me. Yes, it has the potential to not sit well with someone else. But at the same time, someone else sees it and they're just not bothered by it. And look, you can't obviously play a blame game or whatever the case may be. So I have to consider that every single thing that took place had a specific reason and for a specific purpose and for a specific time. And that's what keeps me pushing forward every single day. Because imagine, I'm not deaf.
Yeah.
You understand? But what would then give me the level of compassion that I have to act unless I can relate to it in some way or somehow? But that in and of itself doesn't exist as a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's why I am completely convinced and convicted that I'm living my word, and by living my word, fulfilling a purpose.
And you know, something that I just want to maybe just go back on, since you mentioned fulfilling your purpose, right? But you also said that in doing what you're doing, it's not about solving a problem for the world, but rather about for yourself or for your world and other people benefiting from that. So how does then purpose intertwine with what problem you are solving for your world? And what was that problem that you were trying to solve that you felt, okay, if I do this, then yes, other people are gonna, but like, how is it that you're doing that for you?
Communication.
Okay.
I love people. I have an absolute love for people. And looking back in my early days, I love to see people laugh. I love to see people happy.
Yes.
I just have an extraordinary love for people. But one thing that as I started to grow older, I started to realize is I love to see people in my world in a better place. And so when I reflect back at that moment that defined things for me, the communication between the deaf colleague and the hearing colleague, that was so vital, because them just being able to go to the message box, type what they want to say to each other, you saw a smile, you saw joy, you saw something happening.
Yeah.
They could share pain, they could share with one another what's going on in their worlds.
Yeah.
And by doing so, build community.
Yeah.
And that really was it was about for me. And I think with wanting to see through my curiosity what my world would look like if I solve this communication problem to build community, that was at the core of my curiosity. And today, I think the one thing that stands out for me specifically about how we're going about solving the problem in DeafTouch is that there are solutions that solve the communication problem under the accessibility, umbrella. But I always thought that there's more. And being exposed to the call center industry, call centers create a lot of jobs. Like,
Yes.
the prospects that I had of creating a good life was very low, despite my upbringing, because the opportunities were still very scarce and they were kept to a certain demographic. And call centers just served as this role to bridge that gap for me as well, because I could earn a good living and get qualifications and all the rest as a result of working in a call center. So a lot of people undermine it, and there's a stigma for the colored people that you're always going to work at Standard Bank first or at ABSA first in the call center industry. But the reality is that they serve an extraordinary function.
Sure.
I mean, working in the BPO industry now through this deaf to deaf call center, there's targets of creating I think, over 500,000 jobs by 2030
Wow.
in the sector. That's what call centers have the ability to do. And it was just
So
a
is
case of-
that on the cards? That's what you're setting out to do with.
So that's what the industry is setting out to do.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think for DeafTouch, we would like to create a minimum of 1,500
Okay.
opportunities
Okay.
for the deaf community. And the call center is just a catalyst to that. So instead
Right.
of just solving the accessibility problem, call centers can employ, but they can also upskill.
Yes.
So in the deaf community, there's a very low matriculation rate because of the communication challenge. Just because of communication, they less than 20% matriculate. Within the community itself, 75% unemployment.
Wow.
Less than 20% have access to accessible solutions to be able to live their lives. And so that's the angle that we're solving the problem from. We're saying accessibility is a wonderful thing, but here's an opportunity to give these individuals skills that they can use to build a life, and then they can also create employment. So
essentially, it's more than just the call center element. There's so much more, because you described it a few moments ago as a deaf-to-deaf call center. But when you unpack all these other elements of what you want to do and achieve, it's so much more than that. It really is redefining and repurposing opportunities within the deaf community itself on many different aspects.
100%. One thing I said to myself when I set out on this path was, I'm not going to learn sign language immediately.
Okay.
Because what I want to do is I want to get to as close to the problem as I possibly can.
Okay.
To see what it unearths. And that again wasn't even coincidence. It was really just inspiration that came without question or doubt from the source of why I'm on this mission. And when I did that, I started to see a little bit more of the issues that unfolded, a lot more. And it allowed us to start working on various other solutions that utilizes the entire community. Because within the deaf community is interpreters. Interpreters play such an extraordinary role in the lives of the deaf community because they serve as that bridge. So much so that one of the partners we're working with, deaf empowerment firm, Alex, who's the founder of deaf empowerment firm, lost her interpreter, Lindy. After some complications she went through after giving birth to her first child. So she passed. And at the memorial service, Alex made a profound statement. Alex says, "It feels like I've lost my voice again." And I'm like, what? So we can't just be solving the problem from one perspective.
Yeah.
We have to consider the entire community.
Right.
And out of that was born Lindy. Lindy sets to be a decentralized marketplace
Okay.
that gives us on-demand access to sign language interpreters.
Okay.
I didn't stop there. I, started immersing myself even deeper and deeper into the problem, and I started eventually learning sign language.
Okay. So at that point, you felt like, okay, it's time now.
100%.
Yeah.
And when I did, I found myself, in spaces where myself, or if I'm with one of my employees, go into a public space, we only speak sign.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the reason for that was just to see the response from the...
So it was sort of experimental.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So once we went to a chicken licken, and that's what we did, and we forced the cashier assisting us to find a way to communicate. We pushed it. In another occasion, we drove through the driveway at McDonald's in Sandton, sorry. And we refused to speak.
Yeah.
We said to ourselves, this is what we're going to do in this situation. And by doing so, it becomes very immersive exercises that allows you to see the world in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
And that allows you to pivot and look at new solutions, but most importantly, consider what this looks like from the community's perspective.
Yes, and also showing, all these companies that serve the public, that are in the public service, that this is an issue, right? And what are you going to do about it?
100% so. And the challenging part about it is the slow response.
Even still.
You would think when you launched the first deaf-to-deaf call center that companies would be on your doorstep.
Exactly.
Because you're solving a massive problem.
Yes.
But because it's such a deep systemic issue, people actually try to get it out of their peripheral, because what you are doing is you are exposing something that's festering in society. And with the culture that exists in today's day and age, people don't want to face the uncomfortable things.
And I don't get that. Why, continue to turn a blind eye or push something like that aside, right? Because you're coming to them with a solution. It's not like you're trying to upstage them or anything. It's, guys, this is an issue that we see. This is a big problem. It's not something that's foreign. But now here we are with a solution. Can we work together on this? And now, no acceptance to that?
If I were to ask you, how big do you think the accessibility industry or market is? How big is that in terms of value? What's the value of the accessibility industry? What would your response be?
I don't even know if I could place a value on that.
What if I said to you it's more than $1 trillion?
Wow.
What stuns me is two things: fear and risk. These days you have to de-risk to such a degree that investment has a zero possibility of loss and 100% possibility of ROI.
Right.
That's the first thing.
Right.
The second thing is fear. What we don't know, we fear. We fear what we don't know. And what excites me about the fact that we were able to place ourselves into that environment is that we were able to do both. De-risk and make the journey a lot less fearful for organizations. And so what we're trusting for at this point in time is for organizations to see that.
Yeah.
While they are also able to see here is an ROI that is worth investing in.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've assisted in just these 7 months of this year alone. We've assisted 5 organizations reach their BEE, their ESD, their supply development targets, and their employment equity targets for people with disabilities, which previously had a 2% target. It's now up to 3%.
Okay.
And we were able to assist organizations with
Yeah.
that easily.
Yeah.
But yet there's a very, very slow uptake because of fear and also of risk. But what excites me most importantly is when I look at the fact that this is an industry and a sector that's worth trillions.
Yes.
We are able to paint pictures for organizations to get them to a point where they'll be willing.
Yeah.
I mean, the deaf community buy cars, they buy homes,
Yeah.
they have lives that must be insured, they have emergencies, they own SASA, they have bank accounts, they buy furniture.
Yes.
They travel.
They do everything that we do. They do the things. They do the things.
And the interesting thing is that it's an invisible disability. So when you look at a deaf individual,
You don't know until
you
they...
won't even know.
Yeah.
You won't even know. And so we see the world from that perspective and from that lens, that these are human beings. These are people that's deserving.
Yeah.
They are equal to every single one of us. There's no reason for us to be excluding them. So let's work together, bridge this communication gap, and unlock value of community for
That's
everyone.
it. I mean, it shouldn't even be a question. I think any company that exists that is serving the public, like, can we just implement this technology? It's there. You're doing it. I mean, and the track record speaks for itself. I mean, it's not just everybody that gets to go to MIT and, has a whole little speech happening and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about MIT. What was it, an invitation? How did that come about? Because obviously you're doing something right with the technology to get the attention of an institution like MIT interested to hear more about it or learn about it or even teach it if it got to that point?
So I think you're talking about the University of Toronto.
Okay.
That came about through me
Oh,
applying
it was the
to...
University of Toronto.
Yes.
Yes.
I applied to the Africa Impact Initiative in 2023.
Yes.
I submitted my idea. At the time, it wasn't an idea anymore. We were actively working at it. And they were an accelerator. So they seek to bridge, the access to funding for African startups and so forth. And they're doing an extremely awesome job about it. So there were thousands and thousands of applications that came through for it. And I was one of, I think it was 20 African startups that were successful in applying to the accelerator.
Yeah.
So an accelerator is, you are already beyond idea stage, you're already in prototype stage, and they're trying to accelerate you to market and get you investors and exposure to markets and so forth. And part of that was traveling to Canada.
Yes.
Where I spent about 3 months. In fact, this year, this exact moment, I was in Canada. I missed the whole of winter. Oh, guys, what is this winter thing? I don't know why you South Africans.
Why do you have winter?
Why you got winter? I mean, really? It isn't necessary. So, and that was a work integrated learning model that we were exposed to, where you get put in environments that push you to your next level. And it's the reason it's called an accelerator, because literally 3 months after we came back from that accelerator, we could launch the call center.
Yes.
So that was such an extraordinary part of our journey, because it exposes you to an extraordinary world. What is amazing about it was discovering that in the first world, Africa is solving the problem better. So while they have the same problem, the way Africa is solving it is so much different, so much more effective, so much more efficient. And it's worthwhile investing into Africa. I mean, this is the first deaf-to-deaf call center in Africa. It's the first deaf-to-deaf call center for the BPO sector, for the global business sector. And imagine that. This doesn't exist in the global business sector, and yet we have the first world.
Yeah.
So that should give you a bit of perspective around what we actually have as Africans, but also what we have as people. Because I don't think we should judge it from a perspective of differences and so forth. I think we should most certainly focus on it from a perspective of working together to solve.
Absolutely. And then Claybourne, I'm sad for this thing to come to its close, and there's so much more we can talk about. We might have to set up a part 2 and have you back in here, because I think we would want to keep an eye on what's happening with DeafTouch and its progress, and stay in touch with any of its developments and how we can help spread the word a little bit more. So with that being said, if you could you did touch on a little bit about what the future of DeafTouch looks like, and some of your plans, but if you could elaborate a little bit more, if there is anything extra you'd like to add on to that, what does the future of DeafTouch look like?
Wow. So at the moment, what's interesting in terms of our business model, we are about to pilot with a few organizations as implementing partners a high impact program, where what we're doing is, instead of going the traditional employee route, we're converting our employees into micro enterprises. The reason we're doing that is because, as you know, the unemployment rate in South Africa is sky high. I think it's at 40% at the moment.
Right.
So never mind youth unemployment, there's a disabled community as well. So what we're doing is we pivoting into the traditional model, into a micro franchise model, where you work from a marketplace. So we work as like a franchise. There'll be a franchisee. We give them all the resources, the training, the desk, the technology. We give all of that to them. And once they are trained up, they then serve DeafTouch through the marketplace we still fulfill the end goal, where clients will have a service such as a outsourced call center, but these individuals are doing it as micro enterprises. This gives agency, it gives independence, but it also stimulates participation on an economical level much more. It helps them understand that they have a profit and loss.
Yeah.
And they are then able to run a micro enterprise, but they have all the backing in DeafTouch. So what we see out of this is a great response to the unemployment rate, where we're giving individuals the ability to grow in a way that they've never ever grown before. And by doing this, we're accelerating the issues that we had systemically in the deaf community. So now when you invest into individuals by giving them these resources and ensuring that you create the best landscape for success while returning the agency to them, we're excited to see how that unfolds, while also obviously reducing the unemployment rate in our country. So we're quite excited about that. We look forward to it, and we truly believe that it's an extraordinary response to a big problem that we have in our country. So yeah, we're really excited to see how that unfolds.
Yes, as am I, and I'm sure, everybody listening and watching will be equally, as excited to see what happens. Claybourne, man, if ever there was an example of one of the most perfect and most beautiful marriages to exist, one could look at DeafTouch as such a thing, where it, took experience and married it with purpose, and we have now the result of DeafTouch. The experience you gain from working in a call center, and then applying that purpose in, making a difference and serving the deaf community. I mean, come on, hey, that is just brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. And on that note, ladies and gents, Mzansi, citizens of the globe, well, wait, let me ask you to do the outro for us. As long as you wrap it up with excite and don't forget the "ite," do you think you can do a little rap at the end? Take us home.
Wow. How about putting me on the spot? Yeah, thank you so much again, Terence, for having me. And to the listeners, I hope that you received something that would inspire and ensure that you accept your story and love your story and become your word and fulfill your purpose. And hopefully we'll also be able to see you on EXC-i8.
There we go.